Hi, it's Mike Thornton from Production Expert, and today we're going to take a look at the new FRQ Shift plugin from Tonsturm. Now we'll start with a brief tour of the plugin, and it consists of two frequency shifters which can be locked together or work separately. Now frequency shifters adjust the frequency of the sound by the same amount, rather than pitch shifters which adjust the pitch and so maintain the sound's harmonic structure. Frequency shifters adjusting the frequency, so you might adjust it by 100 Hz, so something that's 200 Hz goes down to 100 Hz up to 300 Hz, but of course at 10k you're putting it up to 10.1k because you're still adjusting it by 100 Hz. And of course that trashes the harmonic structure of a sound, but of course that may well be exactly what we want to do. Now in this video I'm going to take a look at how we might use FRQ Shift in a post context to create a range of different sounds. To start with, we're going to go into the presets and we're going to take a look at the voice group and partial robot. And just for the moment, I'm going to increase the frequency range so that we can see a bit clearer what's going on. So the lines on the left-hand side relate to the left-hand channel, and the lines on the right-hand side relate to what's going on the right-hand channel. And the reason there are lots of lines is because we have two feedback paths going on. We've got the frequency shifter and we've got the resonator. So if we just turn these off for a moment, you'll see we get back to a standard amount of frequency adjustment. And that is set by this control here. And so you can see what's happening is the left-hand channel is being shifted down by 46.5 Hz, and the right-hand channel is being shifted up by 46.5 Hz. And we can obviously adjust the balance between the dry and the wet. So let's take the dry right down.
When the Vitaphone was in its
that's the original
stage,
sound.
A man had to beg me, fairly kidnap me to get me down to
and so we can hear the frequency shifting taking place. You can start to hear a bit of almost feedback taking place. So if we go into the resonator,
Warner Brothers, their efforts tolerated then but envied now.
We can just reduce that amount.
Bravely, successfully, they plunged, staking everything, stopping at nothing. They put the show into the Vitaphone and the Vitaphone into the show.
Of course, we can adjust the amount of frequency shift.
I had lunch the other day with a well-known physicist, a man of vision but also of practice. The picture of the future, said he, will have animation, sound, color, and depth.
Although we're not using it, the right-hand frequency shifter is the same as the left-hand one, so we've got two different frequency shifters. So this is obviously adjusting both left and right channels of the audio. It's not this one for the left, this one for the right, but it does mean that we can have two completely different effects taking place, and then we can mix between them with this crossfade control. So let's move on to the auto robot here and take a look at what's going on. And if we just play the audio again, so in this case we've got a modulator and we've got an envelope follower as a modulator. So the effect of the audio envelope is controlling various controls. We've got other modulators, fairly conventional LFO, custom LFO, and a random option. But let's go back to the envelope follower. At the moment, you can see down here what it's doing. It's controlling the crossfade, so over here. So it's adjusting the balance between the two different frequency shifter modules. And it's also affecting the resonator, the feedback of the resonator. So it's adjusting the feedback. And in fact, what's happening as the audio increases in volume, it's actually turning down the feedback.
1928. When the Vitaphone was in its laboratory stage, a man had to beg me, fairly kidnap me to get me me down to hear it.
And then finally in the filter module, we've got one of the bands active, and we've got some low cut taking place.
I was greatly impressed with the device, but questioned its show value. Warner Brothers, their efforts tolerated then but envied now, answered that question boldly, bravely, successfully. They plunged, staking everything, stopping at nothing. They put the show into the Vitaphone, and the Vitaphone...
So there we go. That's looking at Auto Robot and using the envelope follower as a modulation tool to control, in this case, the crossfade and the resonator feedback, but it can be any of these controls. Next, let's take a look at the nice and wide preset. And you can see here that in this case, on the left-hand channel, the blue line, the left-hand channel is being frequency shifted by minus 0.6 of a hertz, and the right-hand channel is being shifted up by 6.48 of a hertz. Now, what's interesting is if you only have a very small amount of frequency shifting, you get this sort of wide phasing effect. So if I just take the dry wet down to dry,
When the Vitaphone was in its laboratory
and then we
stage,
increase
a man
this,
had to beg me, fairly
and whoosh.
kidnap me to get me down to hear it. We had ourselves completely sold on the theory
We've got
that the
a
picture was
wide
all in
stereo
all,
effect.
had no limitations. I was greatly impressed with the device, but questioned its show value. Warner Brothers, their efforts tolerated then but envied now, answered that
Listen
question
what happens when I
boldly,
increase the
bravely,
frequency
successfully.
shift.
They plunged, staking everything, stopping
We
at
lose
nothing.
that stereo
They put the
effect,
show into the
and we can
Vitaphone,
clearly
the
hear
Vitaphone
the
into
pitch
the show
shifting
business.
up and down.
I had lunch the other day with
So
a
small
a
amounts
man of vision, but also of practice. The
of
picture
frequency
the future,
shifting
said he, will
have this stereo
animation,
effect.
sound, color, and depth. And there will be such perfection along all these lines that one entering a picture theater
just
and
take
seeing
delay
for the
off,
first time such an exhibition will get the
hear
impression
it
that he
even
is
more
actually
clearly.
seeing and hearing living people in action. Written by William A. Johnston, Transactions of Society of Motion Picture Engineers, Volume
how it
12,
deteriorates?
Number 35,
You
1928.
lose that effect.
When the Vitaphone was in its laboratory stage,
Small
a man
amounts
had to beg me, fairly kidnap me to get me down to hear it.
do
We had
the trick.
ourselves
So again, it's a
completely
very
sold on the
interesting
theory that
way
the
of
picture was
creating
all
a
in
stereo
all,
effect.
had no
On this same vein, if we look at subtle spread, you can see here now that we've got a fixed amount, just 0.89 of a hertz.
When the Vitaphone was in its laboratory stage, a man had to beg me, fairly kidnap me to get me down to hear it. We had ourselves
Remove the
completely
frequency
sold
shifting.
on the theory that the picture was all
Collapses
in all,
down to mono.
had no limitations. I was greatly impressed with the device, but questioned its show value. Warner Brothers, their efforts tolerated then but envied now, answered that question boldly, bravely, successfully. They plunged, staking everything, stopping at nothing. They put the show into the Vitaphone and the Vitaphone into the show business.
And finally, we're going to take a look at deep vocals and see what happens here. Now, in this case, it's using another feature. We've got two options with the frequency shifting modules. We can either shift the frequency in the normal way, or we can go into phase spread mode where the frequency shift is fixed, but as we control this, we're actually controlling the phase correlation between the left and right channel frequency shifters. So again, let's take a listen.
When the Vitaphone was in its laboratory stage, a man had to beg me, fairly kidnap me to get me down to hear it. We had ourselves completely
So we've got
sold on
a
the theory that the
fixed
picture was
100
all in
hertz
all, had no limitations.
shift down,
I was greatly impressed with the device, but questioned its show value. Warner Brothers,
which is
their
controlled
efforts
by this
tolerated
control
them, but
here.
envied now, answered that question boldly.
And we've got a
bravely,
spread.
Successfully. They plunged, staking everything.
this is now
stopping
phase
at
spread
nothing.
rather than frequency
They put the
spread.
show into the
And then we've
Vitaphone
got
and
the
Vitaphone
shifter
into the show
module,
business.
which we're allowing
lunch the other day with a
to
well-known
adjust
physicist, a
the
man of
shifter
vision, but also of
and also a
practice.
filter
The picture of
module
the future,
working.
said he, will have animation, sound,
But if we just
color,
take-
and depth, and there will be such perfection along
Again,
all
we
these
lose
lines
the
that
stereo
one entering
effect,
a picture theater and seeing
which
for
we're
the first
getting
time
by
such an
changing the phase
exhibition will
correlation
get the
between the
impression
left
that
and
he is
right
actually
shifters. So
seeing
we
and
just
hearing
wind that back in
living
again.
people in action. Written by William A. Johnston. Transactions of
Because
Society of Motion Picture
we've got the
Engineers,
pitch shifting
Volume
going
12,
down,
number 35,
so we're getting that additional
1928.
lower voice.
When the Vitaphone was in its laboratory stage, a man had to beg me, fairly kidnap me to get me down to hear it. We had ourselves completely sold on the theory that the picture was all in all, had no limitations.
And then we've got
I was
the
greatly
envelope
impressed
shaper
with the
here,
device, but
and of
questioned
course
its show
this is
value.
now
Warner Brothers, their
controlling
efforts
the
tolerated then, but envied
shifter
now,
feedback.
answered that question boldly, bravely, successfully. They plunged, staking everything.
So again, you
stopping
can
at
see
nothing.
how it's adjusting
They
the
put
feedback.
show
In this
in the
case,
Vitaphone, and the Vitaphone
we're
made
actually
the show
increasing the amount of
I had
feedback
lunch the other day with a
with
well-known
the audio
physicist,
level.
a man of vision but also of practice. The picture of the future, said he.
So there we
had
go.
anima-
That's just a quick look at a fraction of what you can do with this new Freak Shift plugin from Tonsturm. If you want to know more about this plugin and what we think about it, then do check out the complete article on the Production Expert website. I'll see you again soon.